So real quick before the video starts, if you guys enjoy it, remember to leave a like, and if you want to see more like it, remember to subscribe. More Halloween content is going to be coming out, probably going to be streaming this Saturday, so make sure to be there if you want to see me grinding, getting some new stuff. And of course, as the different parts of Halloween come out, I'll be covering all of the new content, covering all the new quests and everything, all the new items, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see that as well. Anyway, in today's video, I'm going to be covering all of the new items in this update. We're going to be taking a look at them and giving them a little bit of a review. Now, when I say all items, I do mean that with a little bit of a caveat. I don't mean every item in this update. And that's because this update had over 60 new items that got added. That is correct, you heard me right, over 60. I'm sure most of you didn't count the items, and there are in fact over 60 completely new items, which is just absurd. So I'm not going to be covering any of the decorative collectibles, obviously none of the presents, none of the different candy items that work to make candy, all of the upgraders, except for one which I'll mention, and I'm not going to be covering any of the old mines or items that have returned, like the Super Swin-type mine, the Pumpkinite mine, or the Swin-type mine. Now, like I said, there is one candy item that I wanted to mention very quickly, and that is the Lollipoppinator, and that's because this item is a 1-unit long upgrader, and that is just really helpful. There are a lot of situations where having an upgrader that's only a single unit long can be very useful, even if it's not got a great multiplier. I believe right now it does a 25% upgrade or something, nothing significant at all, but just having a 1-unit long upgrader, just the utility of that is very, very helpful. So I recommend stocking up on these if you can, buying at least a few of them, because I think it'll be a pretty helpful upgrader. The rest of the candy stuff is pretty low multiplier. I imagine it's going to be probably on par with a lot of the Christmas upgraders in that they're not good. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's start talking about all of the different items added this update, starting off with the collectibles. Starting off with the Spectral Research Center. This is obviously a research center designed for making you research points. It has a 5 times multiplier, and it'll give you 55 research points for every 30 ore that it accepts, which is not great. It's not a particularly good research point furnace, but you can't really be surprised by that when it's a collectible. It's okay if you're a lower life, it can be pretty helpful. If you're able to get your hands on this thing early on and you need research points, it'll be good, but other than that, I don't really see it being very useful for many people. Next up, we've got the Ghastly Graveyard. This is a small little upgrader that has a simple 2 times multiplier. Once again, it's a pretty basic collectible. You're probably not going to be seeing a whole lot of usefulness from this item outside of the early game, but it is pretty small, so you could maybe use it in Tesla lines or eval lines or whatever. But there are better upgraders that you can get for the space, so if you have some stuff that fits there, it'll probably be better to use something different, but yeah, 2 times upgrader, it's eh. Next up, the Pumpkin Carriage. This is another collectible tier item, and it has a multiplier of 2.25 times, a little bit higher, but it's raised, and once again, not particularly useful. This thing especially, I really don't see that much of a purpose or point in this. I don't really see it being particularly useful outside of the early game. Yeah, it's another meh collectible. We're gonna be hearing a lot of it's another meh item in this video, because that's what most of the items are in this update. Next up, we've got the Silk Weaver, which is one of the worst items added in this update, because it's a way up high upgrader that only does a 1.5 times multiplier. It is only 2 units long, so I guess if that 2 units long is useful for you at all, then this thing has some benefit, but it's really not that good. It's one of the weakest upgraders in the whole event. Moving on to the final collectible upgrader of the event, we've got the Spider Queen, and this is by far the best upgrader of the collectibles, and one of the best upgraders of the entire event, just because it's a portable. It only has a 2 times multiplier, so pretty low, but it is a portable item, and it does poison your ores, so you need to extinguish them, or you need to get rid of the poison pretty quickly. It's also got a really, really small upgrader beam, so you need to place this thing really close to a conveyor, but yeah, it's a portable, so it's inherently better than just about everything else. That being said, even this thing isn't that great and probably not worth using in a lot of circumstances. Moving on to the 2 new relic tier items of the update. First of all, we've got the Solar Apocalypse. Of course, both of the relics in this update can be found in pumpkin boxes, and this item is actually a little bit better than some of the others. Now, when I say a little bit better, I do mean it's only a little bit better. This thing is an 8 times multiplier upgrader, and it sets ores on fire. So, you know, it's nothing particularly interesting. An 8 times upgrade isn't great, but again, if you're a lower life or like a mid-tier player, then this thing can be a little bit more useful to you, but if you're beyond that, it's not going to be great. It does look really cool, though. I like the aesthetics of it. Next up, the other relic tier item of this event, the Awakened Jack-o'-lantern. This is a furnace item, once again, a relic found in pumpkin boxes. And this thing has the very simple effect of a 300 multiplier. It's a very simple furnace. It's also very bad unless you're in the early game, once again. And it's not even a good research points furnace because it gives you 120 points for 150 ores, which is a very, very bad rate. So this thing, once again, looks really cool. I like the aesthetics of it, but usefulness, is pretty garbage. Next up, we've got the exotics. We're going to start off with the box exotic, starting off with the Parasitic Invader. Now, I'm not sure if this thing is broken or if it just doesn't have any special effects, but people from their testing haven't been able to find anything yet, and as of right now, this thing is a very, very bad mine. It has a pretty large value range from 5 million all the way up to 1.5 billion, and it seemingly doesn't have any special properties, so as of right now, this thing is pretty useless, and even if some special properties do get discovered for it, I doubt they're going to be anything particularly useful. This thing is just going to be another useless mine. Think Hades Fang, but 2020. Next up, we've got the Eerie Marsh, which is the second box exotic of this event, and one of my least favorite upgraders in the game, for the simple reason that I got this thing 15 times before I got the Spook Storm. Anyway, personal grudges aside, this thing, you may be shocked to find, it's not very good. During the day, it has a 3 multiplier. During the night, it has a 4 times multiplier, and it'll give you a +3 to the multiplier if ores are wet. This means it's anywhere from a 6 to 7 times multiplier if ores are wet, and that is, once again, not very good. Pretty big item, pretty low space efficiency, pretty weak multiplier. This thing, kinda trash. Kind of bad. Finally, of the box exotics, we've got the Spook Storm X. This is obviously a continuation in the Spook Mine line. It has an ore value of 1 million to 500 million, and according to the wiki, it has the special effect of reducing nearby ore values. So really just incredible stuff. What an excellent mine. It has a unique effect that reduces the value of other ores, and it has terrible ore value to start with. I feel like we might be missing something with this, because that is genuinely awful, and if we're not, then this thing is just god-awful. And if we are, well then, it's still not going to be useful. This thing still sucks. Trash item. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Different rarity exotics should not come back. I know I keep harping on that, but god, it's a stupid idea. I hate it. Anyway, moving on. Now we're going to start talking about some of the quest exotics that you can get, starting off with the items that you can obtain from Phantasm, and starting off with the Demon. This is the item that you can get from Phantasm if you have the Spook Demon, and this is a pretty sizable upgrader. It has a base multiplier of 6 times, and if you use Spook Demon ores, it has a multiplier of 8.5 times for those ores. Now, say it with me, this item is not very good. Yeah, the Spook Demon is not an item that you're going to be seeing used particularly often, and you're not going to be getting the buff multiplier, and 6 times for this size of an item is not good. It's just not worth using right now, so this thing, as cool as it looks, is bad. Next up, we've got the Master, which is the item that you can make if you have the Spook Master. Once again, a very cool looking item, and it's a little bit smaller, so it's inherently just a tiny bit more useful. It also has a base multiplier of 6.6 times, which is better than the Demon, and it also has a better special effect, where for each Spook Mine you have placed on your base, the multiplier increases by 1. This thing is a little bit better than the Demon, and it's actually not an awful upgrader. It's not good still, but it's not terrible. And I imagine this thing was made a little bit better because players of the Spook Master are pretty rare nowadays. There's not a lot of people who have it. So it's a slightly better item to compensate for that. That being said, it still sucks. Trash item. Next up, we've got the Lord, which is a big purple boy based on the Spook Lord. Once again, another item that looks really cool. I really like the aesthetics and the idea of all of these different items from Phantasm. The upgraders based on Spook Mines, I think, is a pretty cool concept. That being said, once again, this item, shockingly, is not very good. 4 times base multiplier, and if ores have been upgraded by the Spook Lord's Ghost, they'll get a 7 times multiplier. Now, this is bad not only because it has a very weak base multiplier, but also because the Spook Lord Ghosts are very hard to use and actually get a multiplier from. And the buff is only 7 times. It's not particularly good, so this thing is pretty trash. Garbage upgrader, get off of my base. Next up, we've got the Storm, the item that you can get by having the Spook Storm, of course. This thing, once again, looks really cool. They really nailed the looks of all of these items, really. Like, the particle effects on this look great. Look at that. It's like lightning and there's a tornado going on in it. Too bad most players are never going to see this because they play with particles turned off like me. Yeah, this item, base multiplier of 6 times, nothing much different than the others, pretty garbage. It does have one of the better special effects where the multiplier increases to 8.5 times if ores just have a special status effect of any kind. So that's a little bit better, but once again, it's just not a good item. This thing, not great. Get off of my base. Next up, we've got the Baron. This thing, needless to say, very cool looking, but it's also very, very big. This thing is a large boy. Has a 6.5 times multiplier, which for the size of this thing and the fact that it's a way up high is trash. And its special effect gives the Spook Baron ores an extra shield, which I guess is a little bit better, but the Spook Baron is trash. It's kind of outdated, and we already have a mine that has shields, which is the Havium. And it only gives the extra shield to Spook Baron ores, so this thing is a little bit whack. If it gave just shields in general, it might be a little bit better, but even then it would be pretty trash, because even the illusions of Void, even that item, which is significantly smaller and easier to use, is out of the meta now, so trash off of here. Next up, the Phantasm. This is the upgrader that you can get for having 100,000 candy from Phantasm. It's a little bit smaller, it has a base multiplier 3 times in the day, and it does 5 times during the night. It is arguably one of the easiest exotics to get, considering any player who plays this year can get it, versus the others that you need to have played in previous years. Well, except for one other item, which we'll talk about in a second, but yeah, this thing sucks. It's bad. Off of my base. Finally, from Phantasm, we've got quite possibly one of my favorite named items in the game, the Boy. This thing is based off of the Spook Boy, of course, and this thing is actually the best upgrader from the Phantasm. It is not very good, but it's still easily the best out of the Phantasm's arsenal, just because it's a portable upgrader. It looks like a blaster item, and it's similar to the Golden Clover blaster and the Ornament blaster and items like that, because it has a flat multiplier, can't be looped, no explosions or anything, just sets ores on fire. Now, this thing does only have a 1.75 times multiplier, so it's not particularly great, but it is a portable, which makes it better than everything else in the Phantasm shop, because it's just a usable item in any setup. And just look at him, he's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. And moving on to the final 5 exotics, all of them from the Plague Quest. Of course, the quest where you have to go down into the forest and kill zombies to earn points. You get 5 different items, and these are these exotics here that we're going to be talking about. Starting off with the Ghost Eerie's Plague. This is a weapon giver, and it gives you this nice little sword here. And it's actually a pretty good sword. It gives you a nice little speed boost. That's realistically the main thing you're going to be using this for, so it's a pretty good sword, and it's pretty easy to obtain as well. So just about anyone can get a really nice sword that also looks pretty cool. Yeah, Ghost Eerie's Plague, good item. Next up, we've got the Plagued Forest. This thing looks really cool. I really like the aesthetics of all of these Ghost Eerie items. I like the color scheme and everything. It looks really good. That being said, this item has a pitiful multiplier of 20 times. Probably due to the fact that it's so easy to obtain and you can't be giving a furnace that's super strong to players who can get it super easily on their first life, but that being said, it's awful. It has 85 RP for 85 ore, which is also pretty bad RP rate, so for anyone who's not in their 3rd life, this thing is going to be terrible. Next up, the Plague Doctor. This is an upgrader that you can get. This is the next highest tier. The 250 point item, and this thing is a little bit better because it's an upgrader, I guess. That being said, it's not great. Again, it does look really cool, though. I like a lot of the items that got added this update. I think a lot of them do look pretty cool. It has a 5 times multiplier, though, and it has a chance to set ores on fire, and if they're lit on fire, they have about 6 seconds, and then they explode. Now, of course, you probably don't need it. Now, of course, you probably don't need me to tell you this thing is not good. Next up, the Bubonic Plague. This is the 500 point upgrader that you can get. Once again, looks very nice, but it's not good. It has a 5 times multiplier, and it'll give an effect to ores that will cause them to gradually increase in size until they reach the max size, and then they explode. Or rather, they'll be destroyed. They don't actually explode with this thing, but once again, this thing, not good. Not good upgrader. Finally, we've got the Ghost Eerie's Antidote. This thing is an upgrader that pairs with this thing because it gets rid of the negative effect of this. It stops ores from growing and will stop them from getting destroyed. It's a very small little fine point upgrader, so you have to have centered ores with railgun cannons. That's not particularly hard, but it only has a 6 times multiplier. So once again, it's not good. It's just not a good item. It's not worth using. None of these items are like worth using at all except for the 2 portables. And I guess like the Lollipoppinator of all things because of its size for its utility. But that being said, though, we have one more item to cover for this update, and that is the Pumpkin Hut, the new Rebirth tier item that got added. Now, this thing is a Rarity 17 Life at 0 item. Anyone can get this from rebirthing, and it's pretty common. It's not a hard item to come by. It has a 4 times multiplier and makes ores increase in size slightly. Nothing particularly special. I guess the slight increase in ore size could be potentially useful in very specific setups, but I don't see it being practical in most cases. But the most interesting thing about this Rebirth item is that it actually has 4 different shinies based on the 4 different horsemen. So I guess that's kind of cool. It's a limited time item that has a lot of shinies that I'm probably not going to get a single version of. Cool. Very poggers. So there you go. There is every single relevant item from this Halloween update so far. I'm obviously going to be covering items as they come out, and I'm going to be covering everything new, the new presents when they open. And I might even make a video covering all of the presents that are currently buyable so that you guys know what the exotics are going to be and how useful they actually are. This will be helpful for people who don't have a lot of time to get candy or can't AFK or whatever, and hopefully it'll help you make some good purchase decisions. So if you guys want to see that, if you want to see reviews on the exotics that are going to be unboxed box from the presents, let me know, because I can make that video. Anyway, though, this video has been pretty long. There were a lot of items to cover, so I'm not going to keep you here at the end. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Check out the description for all of the cool stuff that has to do with me. You got the Twitter, and the Discord, and the Roblox group, and the music, and also the subscribe button and liking down there as well. Channel memberships, and that reminds me, the last 2 videos, I didn't actually shout out all my channel members, so I'm going to do that this time. So, a big thank you to Logan, Crowbars, Mickle383, Andrew Awesome122, and Vijutsu, which I'm probably saying wrong. Thank you, all of you, for being channel members and for supporting me. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who watched this video. I'm gonna head out now. Love you, hate you. Peace.